figure out. Okay, there. Okay. The reason I'm doing it this way is because I can share things on Zoom. I'm not sure how to do it on YouTube yet. I still have to learn that. And also because we got so heavily spammed and terribly spammed some time ago. So if it's just me, I think it makes it a little bit easier to control. So I've now blocked anyone else from being able to join. So please go on YouTube if you want to be on Zoom, I guess. Okay, so let's begin. We always begin by just settling in to begin with, getting mind and body together. Santa Sangara Shiri Sangama Karajabani Shuna, so soon not to think so. Katana Manam so that the major game keep it running to some sinking again on it and some Japan soon to say. So in a mishap, so that only to keep it running to some sinking again. Some Japan soon to say. Okay, so we're going to start with our bodhicitta motivation. So bodhicitta is the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So bodhi means awakened or enlightened. Citta means the mind and heart together. So um, the whole idea behind bodhicitta is compassion and wisdom. So it begins with compassion, and then wisdom is understanding the cause of suffering. So we need to eradicate that cause if we want to eradicate suffering. So we need to attain enlightenment for that reason, because the cause is very deep and needs addressing in that way. But if that's like too big of an idea, that's fine. We can just think, may this time we spent together this morning benefit not only myself, but others as well. So to take a moment to do that, please. Okay. So gonna have to be careful with my language here because of YouTube. They're very just seeing if I can record on here. Wait 1 second, please. I don't know how to do that. 1 second, please. I'm not very savvy with the technology. Okay. So I have to be a little careful of the language so YouTube doesn't, but turn the, what do you say, delete the video, because I want to talk today about depression and taking one's own life. They don't like the word that we normally use for that. It's a little crazy. There's a whole vocabulary online, social media about unaliving instead of saying DEAD. They like that, so it's kind of cuckoo. But anyway, that's what we're going to discuss today. Some time ago, I wrote a piece on this, and I shared it with somebody last week, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to discuss it. So these are the piece that I wrote is what I'm going to be focusing on today, and it's just called a dozen ways to avoid dying by suicide. And I give some history, which I'm going to skip here, and I'm just going to get right to the points. So the first point is you have to find someone to talk to. Whether it's a friend, a therapist, a dog, or a piece of paper, get it out. So this is something that makes depression and that type of ideation challenging, right? Because if we really keep it inside, then it becomes it starts to fester, I guess is a good way of putting it. And then we can be, it can get like heavier and heavier. So if we could talk to somebody, that's really the best, because there's a tendency to sort of isolate oneself. So of course therapy is really the best solution. But if you can't do that or don't want to do that, then keeping a journal, talking to friends, particularly, I would say therapists first, friends, spiritual advisor, this kind of thing, like an actual human being is the best. But barring that, writing about it, mhm, screaming at the sky, I don't know, other things, just to get it out so it doesn't just sit there and become a kind of heavy stone underwater. Right. The second point is you have to understand that the way that you feel is not the ultimate reality, and it is temporary. So one of the most insidious and evil things, and this is not a word I use lightly, but about depression is that these two, very awful and very strong switches are turned on at the same time. The first one says, this is the only reality. And anybody who has suffered from depression will understand this completely. This is the only reality. Any other time that you have ever felt happy was just a cruel joke played on you because you're a sucker. That's how it feels. Like, oh, I finally woke up to reality. Everything is terrible, and etc. String of bad thoughts or negative thoughts that come after that. Um, Right. So what I wrote is, the truth is that the world is a dark, dark place and you are worthless. This makes me kind of want to laugh and cry at the same time, because when you're in that state, you're 100% convinced of that as a reality. And when you're not in that state, you see how ridiculous and off base that is. You know, it's so strange. So anyway, that's the first kind of switch. The second one says, this will last forever, and you'll spend every minute of your life feeling exactly like this. Okay. So these two, what I call twin devils here, start whispering in your ear, just do it. Why don't you just do it? Right? Just kill yourself already. Yeah. It's so, it just makes me shudder. So, but here's the thing, if you're feeling like that, this is the only reality. This will last forever. Being brief, right? You have to remember, it hasn't always been like this. If you feel like it's always been this way, no, it hasn't. It hasn't. You have to look at that. There are always gaps in this darkness where the light gets in. Those gaps might last days or hours or weeks, right? In the worst moment, they might only last a split second. But if they last even that long, that means the light is there and the gap can and will extend, right? Everything is so important to remember this. Everything, absolutely everything is impermanent. Therefore, it's impossible for you to feel like this forever. So if we can, in that state, try to remember, no, last week I felt fine, or a few days ago I felt okay, or, you know, this morning I didn't feel this bad. Anything like that will show you experientially that it's not permanent. And then the other one, this is the only reality. Now, this is really what reality? What is reality? You know, when that switch goes off in your brain, then question the switch. You know, we're so convinced of our perspective that we don't even think to question it. Is this real? Is this really the way that it is? Yeah. So start to question that, investigate the nature of reality, and see how hard it is to pin down, right? It's weak philosophy if we really think about it that way, right? And we can definitely do better. That's weak, the only reality. No, it's not true. Not true. So the third point is to learn to catch yourself when you first start sliding down. before you end up at the bottom of the pit. Because at that point, it's much easier to turn things around. Okay. So once we get, and again, anybody who has suffered from serious depression will recognize this immediately. And I'm sorry for those of you, well, I'm not sorry, I'm happy for those of you who have never experienced that. But please, hear it anyway, because if you have a friend who is going through this, this will help you to understand them and like where they're coming from. Okay. So there's a point where if you're aware enough of your mind, you can start to see that you're kind of getting lower and lower. You're sort of sliding down the hill towards this well, this really deep pit. Yeah. And then if you don't catch yourself at that point, you fall into the pit and you're at the bottom of the pit. And at that point, there's not much you can do because it's so intense and all consuming, right? But if you can catch yourself at the beginning, that's the point where you can really turn things around. Okay. So, and one of the best ways of learning how to do this is meditation. Okay. Just mindfulness of breathing meditation, nothing fancy, nothing religious, just mindfulness of breathing meditation, where you learn to notice what's happening in the mind. Yeah. And to catch the thoughts as they rise before they turn into this monstrous force beyond your control. Okay? So meditation helps us to see that we're not our thoughts. They're just clouds passing through the mind. We're not obliged to obey them. We're not obliged to take them seriously. They're not real. Yeah. It can be really hard to recognize that, but meditation is really a great way to learn to do that. Oh, this is happening. We learn to see the more subtle movements of the mind. Yeah. So when you see that you started to slide, that's time to make a big effort to turn it around. Right. So what I wrote here is I don't know what mood I was in when I wrote this, but anyway, this is the point where all that bullshit advice that people give you, people who have never experienced even 1 second of true depression in their life can actually work. Yeah. Just go for a walk. But at this point, in the pit, that doesn't work. You're like, I can't even get out of bed. What are you talking about? Go for a walk. Right. But if you start to slide down, going for a walk can be really good in nature. Yeah. Around in the middle of the forest or by the lake or by the sea or whatever, wherever you are. Go see a movie, not a sad one. Call a friend, take a nap. Do the idea is like just to do whatever is going to lift your mood when you are feeling normal. Okay. But don't do it halfway. Yeah. Dive into that because like your life depends on it because your life actually does depend on it. So you see if you have, a lot of experience with depression and you see that point where you're just starting to kind of slide down. Yeah. Then, oh, I need to pick myself up before I get into that pit. So I'm going to go for a walk in nature. I'm going to call a friend or I'm going to, you know, take a nap or I'm going to do anything that's kind of joyful and in like integrates us into life. Yeah. Then the fourth point is, so let's say that we didn't manage to do that, which happens a lot. If you find yourself at the bottom of the pit, just hang on. Just hang on. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do. You don't have to go for a walk. You don't have to cook a meal. You don't have to do anything except hold on. Yeah. Remember the fact of impermanence and trust it. So again, this is where meditation can help us and the sort of daily contemplation of impermanence. This morning I felt like this. Now I feel like this. Last week this happened. This week this happened. You know, Yesterday it was sunny and beautiful. Now it looks like it's snowing. Right? Impermanence, impermanence, impermanence. So we really like make it part of our being. Yeah. Then we know everything is impermanent. So we have to know, even at the bottom of the pit, that things will change and just hang on. Okay. So here's the point where you have a great deal of gentleness towards yourself, and you just allow yourself to do what you need to do in that state. So if you need to sleep for days at a time, do it. If you need to eat a big bag of chips, do it. If you need to binge watch something, do it. All of that is your medicine too. It's keeping you alive. So just do it until suddenly you'll find yourself out of that horrible pit, and then you can get back to your life. But if we're in that state where we can't get out of bed and we're just like, oh, I'm the worst. I can't get out of bed. Why can't I get out of bed? It's terrible. And I mean, it's a lot of times we don't have a choice, right? We have to function. We have to go to work. But maybe you can call in sick that day, you know? But sometimes you can't. Okay, so let's say you have to go to work, whatever. Then you manage as best as you can. But what I'm trying to remove from that is the self-judgment. That's like, oh, you know, I'm a bad person. I'm useless, whatever sort of negative thoughts we might have. Just like I'm sick, you know? I think of it more like you have the flu. If you have the flu and you have to be in bed, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm the worst. I have to be in bed. My fever's 104. No, it's just normal. You know, I have to be in bed. I have a fever. I'm sick, you know? So think of it that way, right? Instead of feeling like it's a moral failure that you can't get out of bed or that you can't function in some way because of your depression. Okay? So the fifth point is to take meds. And I'm still kind of on the fence about this, but depression is not just um, an emotion, right? It's also a physical um, issue in our brain. So meds can help with that. Okay. For me, it was very, very hard to start taking them because it was something I really didn't want to do. But I did find them somewhat useful. I still haven't found anything that works consistently, but I think that it is still worth trying with the doctor and, seeing there might be one that really helps you. And try natural remedies too. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not going to be giving that kind of advice, but I know there are helpful remedies in Ayurvedic medicine, which is the traditional, uh, really ancient medicine of India, in Tibetan medicine and Chinese medicine, among others. So it's worth trying to check those things out too. Um, when if you want to, I do think it's helpful to try to get something to take care of the body, the brain, in addition to the mental, emotional aspect. Okay. And that's also like eating properly. Yeah. Which can be really hard. I know this from decades of experience with that, but, you know, drinking more water, eating more whole foods, clean food and avoiding junk food and stuff like that, because all that stuff can add to depression. And the sixth point is please think about those you would leave behind. They'll never get over it. This is really true. We might feel in the depth of that pit that, nobody's going to really care. Nobody loves me anyway. They'll get over it or something like that. It's devastating for the people left behind. I cannot emphasize that enough. And they never get over it. They never get over it. Or I went to a conference about this many years ago, and yeah, that's just studies and interviews with survivors of people who have taken their own life, um, really show that they don't get over it. It just stays with them. Really, they're just racked with guilt and doubt their whole lives. So please don't do that to them. You know, um, just staying alive. We can't do anything else in the bottom of that pit. Just staying alive is such a great thing, and is so kind. If you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for people that love you, your family and friends, you know. do it for them. Just stay alive for them. That's it. Even if you're mad at them, just don't do that to them. The seventh point may be controversial, I don't know, but the seventh point is to get a dog if you can, uh, you know, or a cat. Um, uh, but a companion in the home, especially if you're living alone, can be really, really helpful for your mood. Um, that what I wrote here is any dog is a therapy dog when it comes to dealing with depression. It's so true, you know. Um, you know, they force you to go out and walk. If a lot of times, right, when you're depressed, you don't want to get out, you don't want to go, you don't want to get out of the house. If you have a dog, the dog has to go outside. Even if you are just opening the door and letting the dog out on a leash in your backyard or whatever, it's good if you can go for a walk with them. They need that for their physical and mental health, and it helps you as well. Dog will make you laugh every day. A dog goes a long way to removing isolation. Yeah. Like before I got my last dog, Omani, is living in this apartment building, and it only had like 19 units, but I didn't know anybody, and I lived in that place for I think 7 years or something. And I think I knew like one couple, but I didn't really know anybody else. It's surprising we didn't see that many people when you were going from the parking lot to your apartment. But once I got Omani, like within 2 weeks, I knew everybody. You know, they a dog will force you to interact with people because people want to interact with the dog, right? Um, so that's a really nice factor as well. And then a dog will love you and hug on you and accept your love and affection too, So I do recommend that. And I know it's not possible for a lot of people for whatever reason. Like right now, I don't myself have a dog because just physically, I need to get stronger physically before I can do that because I want to take good care of the dog, right? Which involves walking. Um, but if you can and you're thinking about it, I highly, highly recommend it. And to get a rescue and not support breeding. So many dogs in like the shelters just constantly overflowing. So, you save that life and the dog can save your life too. So the next points are from Tugu Rinpoche. I talked to him many times about this topic. So um, here's some of his advice. So the eighth point here is you think it'll be better over that wall, but you don't know. It might be worse. So we might think, well, yeah, taking my life it's just like turning off a light switch. It'll be done. There's nothing after, and I'll be free of this suffering. Like that's why people do it, right? It's because they're suffering so much and for so long and so deeply, and they just feel at some point like I can't take it anymore. And they have this notion that by taking their life, the suffering will end. But we don't actually know that. According to the Buddhist, teachings say that the consciousness continues. You can accept that, or you cannot accept that, or you can remain in doubt about that, right? The fact is, right now, you don't know. Even if you believe it, XYZ, you're not 100% sure, right? So maybe your life will just go like that and there's nothing after, but maybe not, right? Maybe not. And you could be setting yourself up for suffering that's a lot worse than what you're going through right now. Yeah, a lot worse. And you don't know. So again, so that's the eighth point. The ninth point is that if you do this, you will inspire others to do the same. And again, this is not just Rinpoche talking or whatever. There's evidence out there for this, right? So someone takes their life and then their child takes their life or their other relative or their spouse. Um, and sometimes we know that there are those in our circle who are also depressed, and sometimes we don't know. So you might have friends or family or acquaintances that are on the brink. You know, do you even know who might be? You don't actually, because people don't. People have a really. I think it's getting better. The understanding is getting better just because of social media and people talking about it. But still, I think there's a misperception out there that um, depressed people are always like going around like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. Oh, okay, it's all right, whatever. No, depressed people sometimes manifest like that, but a lot of times they don't. They're laughing, they're exercising, they're running around, they're doing their job, they seem totally fine. Well, we don't know what's going on inside their mind, right? And we need to understand that. So we don't know who's right on the edge. And we don't know if taking our own life is gonna make them feel, you know, more inspired to do the same, to take their life, right? So we really want to take that chance. Yeah. So the other excellent point, this is point number 10, that Rinpoche said, is that it's not your body that's the problem, it's your mind. So why punish your poor body for a problem of your mind? It's so brilliant. It's so brilliant. It's so true. Our body's not the issue. It's the mind. So destroying the body, it doesn't help the mind. Yeah. So point number 11 is that people often regret um, taking their life uh, when it's too late. Yeah. And again, this is borne out by studies. I mean, I'm giving you what Rinpoche said, but it's also borne out by study of people who have survived an attempt to take their own life. When they interviewed people who jumped off the San Francisco Bridge and survived, each and every one of them said they regretted it the moment they started to fall. Every single person to a T. The moment they let go or jumped, that second, they regretted it. So, you know, Rinpoche said, imagine that you're on a boat in the middle of the ocean and you start to hack away at this boat with an axe. There comes a point where the boat can't be repaired, right? If you regret it then, it's too late you can't put the boat back together. Like, what are you going to do now? Right. So we need to think about that. Like, there comes a point where we can go back, we can start the process and change our minds and be okay. And there comes a point where we can't go back. It's too late. Yeah, so we should remember that. Then the final point here is the 12th point. If you hold Buddhist beliefs, consider this. Taking your own life means that it will take eons upon eons to get another precious human life. So, precious human life, if you want to know more about that, go back about 5 or 6 videos and you'll see I have a talk just on that. But it's essentially a life. I mean, all life is considered precious, but when we use those terms together, precious human life, we mean a life that is particularly um, set up for practicing, encountering the Dharma and practicing and attaining enlightenment. So, and it's extremely hard to get. So, you worked very hard to get this one. So don't let it go to waste. Yeah. Even if you're not a Dharma person, your life is precious. And it would be such a great loss to take it, you know, to remove yourself from the planet. You might not believe that. You probably don't believe that if you're in that state, but please believe it. It's really, really true. You know, yeah. So those are the 12 points. Um, and I hope that you find it helpful. If you have, friends who are suffering like this, please share the video with them. I'm gonna later put a link. There's a really good article that I found some time ago, which I'll link in the description after um, after the session. Um, that talks about it's for people who are trying to help someone who is depressed and has this kind of ideation. Um, it's a very good article. So that's that. So let's do some meditation. Okay, we're gonna do mindfulness and breathing practice for a little bit, and then we're going to do Tonglen, or the practice of exchange, for oneself, which is a great practice also to do when we are feeling really depressed, if we can. It's a good thing to do at that point before you fall into the pit. So it's a great thing to do then, or anytime, really. All right, so let's do some meditation. So if you're sitting on your bed or on the floor or what have you, just cross your legs in whatever way is comfortable for you. If you're sitting in a chair, you want your feet flat on the floor. All the other instructions are the same. Main thing is that your back is straight. Okay, so straight but not tense. Okay, just straight. That's the main point. Then you can put your hands either, palms down on your knees, or resting like that in your lap, or like this with your thumbs touching, whatever way you prefer. Arms are relaxed. So that means we're not holding them in, we're not holding them out, just relax. Okay, shoulders back. Back of the neck is also straight. Chin's going to be tucked in a little bit. Breathing, um, mouth is closed but relaxed, tongue resting on the roof of the mouth. Breathing through the nose. The eyes are open, looking down in front of you with a relaxed, lowered gaze. If you're not comfortable with your eyes open, that's perfectly fine. You can close them, but over time, it's recommended to train yourself to keep them open. Okay, so that's the body. And we're going to bring our awareness to the sensation of the breath coming in and out of the nose. So we're just going to focus towards the end of our nose. Take a moment to just feel that sensation. So that's the sensation that we are focusing on. And then what are we doing with all those thoughts? We're just letting them come and go. Okay. Not trying to push them away. We're not judging them. At the same time, we're not engaging in them. So just let them arise, dwell, and disappear, arise, dwell, and disappear as they will on their own without us interfering. Okay. That's the goal. Focus on the breath, let the thoughts come and go, clouds in the sky, just energy. Okay. What's going to happen is we're going to get distracted. We're going to run after some thought, okay, and just create a whole storyline and be very distracted. As soon as we realize that, just bring the mind back to the breath. This is the practice, okay? Focusing on the breath, letting the thoughts come and go without judgment, without comment, without following after them. If we get distracted, bring the mind back, do it again. That's it. Okay, so let's begin that now. We take the posture, bring the awareness to the breath, allowing the thoughts to come and go. Please begin that now. Now you can begin to count the breaths, counting either every in breath or every out breath to a total of 10 complete breaths. Counting helps us to realize more quickly when we've gotten distracted because we'll lose count. Then we'll just suddenly find, wait, where was I? That shows we got distracted. Just bring the mind back. Start again at 1. We get to 10 without getting distracted. Don't let that distract you. Bring the mind. Start at 1. Okay? So please begin that now, up to 10 breaths. And now we're going to move into the practice of exchange. So we begin by just resting the mind. So we're not trying to focus on anything. Just let the mind settle to its natural state. Okay. Now imagine in your heart center, so that's the middle of your chest. And for this practice, if you want to close your eyes, that's perfectly acceptable. It's a different kind of practice. So imagine in your heart center a bright white light like a shining star. And consider that you're breathing in gray smoke, hot, dark, and heavy, through all the pores of your body. And all of that smoke dissolves into the white light in your heart center. So there's not a single particle of smoke left. There's only light. And you breathe out this white light, cool and clear, very bright, through all the pores of your body, the light going in all directions. Now imagine yourself in front of yourself, facing you. So the you that is doing this practice, the you that is meditating, is the part of yourself that's very much in touch with your true nature, your good heart, your enlightened nature. And the you that you are visualizing is the part of yourself that is frightened, in pain, confused, whatever you're going through as far as suffering is concerned. Okay? So the first thing we want to do here is to regard ourselves with love. Look at yourself with love. Recognize your many good qualities, your your goodness, your intelligence, your talents, your sense of humor, your kindness, whatever it is that is good about you. And there's plenty there, whether you realize it or not. And without embarrassment, without shyness, recognize those things, appreciate those things, just like you do in your loved ones and your friends and family, right? You see them, you know how fantastic they are. You love them so much. At the same time, you know that they're not perfect. And sometimes they get on your nerves. And sometimes they do things you don't like, but you still love them. So would you just extending that same process to yourself? Of course, you're not perfect. Of course, you make mistakes. Of course, there's things you're not good at, whatever, right? But it doesn't mean you're not deserving of love. So appreciate your many good qualities. Regard yourself with the same type of love you give to your loved ones. And then consider whatever kind of suffering you're going through, physical, mental, emotional. Maybe you're sick or you have other physical problems. Maybe you have a lot of fear about the future. Maybe whatever. You know better than anybody the giant bouquet of crappiness that you have to deal with, right? So instead of feeling like a failure for having these kinds of sufferings, have compassion for yourself, just like you do for your loved ones when they're suffering. Wish that form the wish that you be free of suffering. Then imagine that all your suffering, whatever it is, takes the form of gray smoke, hot, dark, and heavy. It leaves the visualized you and comes to the meditating you. And you just breathe that in through all the pores of your body. And all of that smoke dissolves into the white light in your heart center. Until there's not a single particle of smoke left. There's only light. And then you offer yourself everything that you could possibly need. to be free of suffering, whatever that may be. And again, you know this. It's health or wealth or companionship or whatever it is. Just offer that to yourself. May you have these things that you need to feel better, to be free of suffering. And add to that the wish that you attain full and complete enlightenment in this very lifetime. So all of these good wishes for yourself take the form of white light, cool, clean, clear, very, very bright. And you breathe out this white light through all the pores of your body. And the light goes from the meditating you to the visualized you. And when these rays of light touch the visualized you, you see all of your suffering just lifting off of you and disappearing. And you see yourself happy, relaxed, relieved to be finally free of suffering and joyful. And the meditating you feels really joyful for being able to do this for yourself. And we move on to doing that same process for all beings without exception. Begin by visualizing countless sentient beings in front of you, as far as the eye can see, stretching all the way to the horizon. Same thing to the right, all the way to the horizon. Behind, again, as many beings as you can imagine, stretching all the way to the horizon. Same thing to the left, all the way to the horizon. So now you're in the middle of a sea of sentient beings who are connected to us all, whether we realize it or not. And the Buddha said every single being has at one point or another been a very kind and gentle mother. But even if we can't accept that idea, that's fine. We're still connected to them. We're, if only by the fact that we're all the same and wanting to be happy and wanting to be free of suffering, right? So we do have a lot in common. So imagine all of them and imagine whatever kind of sufferings they might be going through physically, mentally, emotionally. And then consider that all of their suffering, whatever it is, takes the form of gray smoke, hot in temperature, heavy in weight, dark, and leaves them, and it comes to you. And with a great deal of courage and love and openness, you breathe that in through all the pores of your body. And all of that smoke dissolves into the white light in your heart center until there's not a single particle of smoke left. There's only light. And then you offer all of these beings without exception your own happiness, giving it away, your own merit, anything at all that they may need to feel better, to be free of suffering. And adding to that, the wish that they attain full and complete enlightenment in this very lifetime. All of those things take the form of white light, again, cool and clear, very bright. And you breathe out white light through all the pores of your body. So every single pore emanating a ray of light, and this light so powerful and strong, it goes in all directions, as far as the eye can see, in front, to the right, behind, to the left. And when these rays of light touch all these beings, each individually, their suffering just lifts off of them and disappears like fog in the morning sun. And they feel so happy so relieved, peaceful, and you feel really joyful for being able to do this for them. I would let go of the visualization altogether, gently bringing the mind back to the breath, using the breath to keep the mind in the present moment, here and now. Okay. So before we go on to the closing prayers, I'd like to know if anybody has a question. Can you put it in the chat and do the best to answer? I'll give you a minute, but not too long. So jump on it if you have a question. I don't know how long it takes to show up in the chat, but I'll wait a minute for that. Okay, so it looks like there are no questions. Okay, so let's do the closing prayers. I'm gonna share my screen for that. If you want them and you don't have them, there's a link in the description. You can download them there. Okay, so share my screen. Okay, so begin with the long life prayers for our teachers, starting with the Dalai Lama. These we say just in Tibetan. Kanri wawe kuwe shinkansu dandan dewa malu juene. Sune si wan tin singam soye. Shape kya kapa tu chingu shi. Om swasti jigme kempe kalong yambaru. Ungao se chen se bundawa. Nido dun sanam ke no bucho. Se che gawe shankin su so. Om Swasti Selagam Sochinab Chinjune, Unsing Daksay Gyuchu Pemalam, Sansum Nadre Gabo Tatene, Achenten Dushe Dundake Sho, Lama Gunga Sambo Sawade, Shatu Kuseri Wasawade, Vine Tashin Geba Sawade, Lama Dandre Wame Pachingi Lo. Now, these first one we say once with the remaining three. There's another one down here. The remaining three we say just in English, and then we say the 100 syllable. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy, wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of cyclic existence, may I free all beings. Sonandi chamche sipani, chamene pedranam panche Egana jibanon chupai, sipe sole doa doa sho. May bodhicitta, precious and sublime, arise where it has not yet come to be, and where it has arisen, may it never fail, but grow and flourish ever more and more. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may it too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. Ever absorbed in the display of divine forms and primordial awareness, appearance, sound, and perception in the state of divinities, mantras, and dharmakaya, may I, inseparable from the practice of the profound and secret great yoga, attain within the essence of mind the state of one taste. Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajra Sattva Tenopa Ishtadrido Me Bhava Sudokayo Me Bhava Subokayo Me Bhava Anurakyo Me Bhava Sawasiri Me Prayatsa Sawatama Shutsa Me Chitam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Om Bhagavan Soatata Gata Vajramani Munsa Vajribhava Mahasamaya Sattva. Okay, so before we end, I just want to make a couple of announcements. We have meditation every Saturday on YouTube live stream. I might add the Zoom function back at some point. I don't know, but right now it's just on YouTube. And the second Saturday of every month, we're on YouTube and in person at the Lakewood Public Library on Detroit Road in Lakewood. We do have two new classes coming up in April, probably April and May. Not sure yet. I'm still working out that schedule. And there will be another retreat, weekend retreat in May. What else? Um, yeah, if you are able to make a donation, we really appreciate it. We do actually need money to run this whole thing. Unfortunately, that is the way it is. That's actually the way it's always been, even in the Buddhist time. People made donations, gave offerings, etc. So if you're able to do that, there's links below for that. If you want to become a member, it's really the best. Um, there's levels for every budget, and we have discounts on every level. So please check that out on our membership page. Not on your phone because it's wonky right now, and we're trying to fix that, but on your computer or laptop, whatever tablet should show up okay. That's it. Be happy. Don't hurt yourself. Okay. Bye.